Now, as microlending becomes big business, a fractious debate has erupted. The debate is whether or not microlenders have contributed to the debt spiral which many South Africans find themselves trapped in. Speaking in favour of microlending is Paul Turan from Vestact, and he joins me in the Johannesburg studio. The opposing view is Andrew Cantor, CIO of Future Growth, who is in Cape Town right now. Gentlemen, there are only two rules for tonight. The first is keep it clean, and the second rule is remember the first rule. So, Paul, because you're in Johannesburg, you're up first.
Good. Okay, look, my view of this thing, and I speak as a significant shareholder in African Bank, equity holder in African Bank, is that the ability to leverage a sophisticated financial sector is the key differentiator between South Africa and many other poor countries that can't scratch their bums with coins. This is the issue. The ability to both defer money and save, as well as to bring forward one's future cash flow, is critical to middle income families. And everybody involved in development activities, whether it's equity markets, bond markets, or others, should be doing everything they can in order to support this business sector.
Andrew, we can read into that body language, sir.
Yeah, look, man, I wouldn't want to be in Paul's shoes having to defend the microlending industry. But what I'll say is this: I don't disagree with him in principle. The democratization of credit is a vital human need. From the mid-1990s, we've been funding, as a development financier in our development funds, we've been financing microfinance of a variety of forms, but including personal unsecured lending. When there were loan sharks, legitimate players were good. Under the NCA, where it's a level playing field, we would expect a higher level of behavior. What we're seeing happening out there is people, yes, bringing forward future cash flows. To what purpose? You're stuffing debt into people's balance sheets and taking it out of their income that they're never going to be able to really repay because they're consuming that money. There's not a competition for rate to bring rates down. There's a competition to literally fill people's debt capacity up as much as you can and basically impoverish them. That's our issue. And that's why we say we don't count as a developmental asset class anymore. We're quite happy to fund housing finance, car finance, developmental finance, construction finance. But personal unsecured lending has just gone too far. It's unsustainable, and we just can't really defend it anymore as a developmental asset class.
It's gone too far, but you must make things very clear here. You say you've stopped investing through your developmental funds, but you are still involved in the unsecured lending business, aren't you?
So sure. Look, I mean, one doesn't want to be sort of overly reactive either. We've had a long journey of this discussion. We have a big exposure to this sector. This isn't about talking our book. We carry big exposures. It is about our developmental funds. It's about what is defensible within our developmental funds. The other thing is we won't want to kill this industry. We need competition to the big banks. You leave it to the big banks, nothing's ever going to happen in alternative credit. It just won't happen. It's not their nature. So we'd like to see some industry reform, probably better regulatory action. We'd like to see a shakeout of the weaker competitors, the ones that are really bringing down standards, and that's where we're at. If we can change our mind on this, if the industry changes, we'll change.
What does the industry need to do for you to change?
Bringing it back to Joburg here. Paul, your stance is well known, and that is that you are a defender of the investment case for African Bank.
No, but forget about the investment case, because that's not important. What's important is the industry is being tarred with a terrible brush at the moment. This idea that microloans lead people into a terrible debt spiral is actually not borne out by the facts. All of the microlenders do extensive research on what happens to the loans, and the research shows the vast majority of people do three things. They pay for home improvements. They send their children to university or to college in order to try and get better skills. And thirdly, they buy basic household goods, which enable them to sleep on a horizontal surface, sit on a lounge suite, and watch television, all of which are fundamental human rights, which ought to be defended at all costs. This idea that microloans are used for reckless and drunken behavior and misconduct is actually damaging the industry at the moment, and it's totally, totally unfair. And what it does, it springs...
It's a human right to be able to lie and watch television, Andrew.
It springs from a Puritan idea that debt is bad, and it comes right at a time when the industry is down. We're busy kicking them in the kidneys, and it actually distracts from the...
I have to kick you because we've got to hand it back to Cape Town. Andrew.
I'm a debt investor, my man. I'm not against. I don't have a puritanical idea of debt, Paul. I hear you. I've said democratization of credit is important. I think the information you're quoting is very anecdotal. It's out of the industry. It is very unsubstantiated. The only third-party research I've seen is from a firm called 80/20, who did some real research about where that money's going, and it is bad. what we hear anecdotally on the other side, on the ground, I don't know about you, every one of us has had to bail out our maid or our gardener or some other household staff, explain the awesome negative power of compound interest, pray to God that they don't get to the hands of the microlenders. God forbid they should walk into a bank to get a mortgage loan, a big bank, they will be directed to a microloan at a 50% effective rate.
But
no, I'm
Andrew,
sorry, that's not the
real
purpose of
numbers
credit.
that count.
The credit
The real
is for
numbers that
education
count.
and housing. But nobody's got, the industry is not producing them, Paul. It's very anecdotal.
But the
we
real
funded
numbers
one guy
that
to do a
count are
house.
that ultimately
I want to see
around
numbers.
10% of the loans that get issued get written off. Saying that microloans and unsecured lending is bad is like saying that cars are bad for humanity because a couple of people drive badly and write themselves and their vehicles off. We're not defunding the auto industry because a couple of people drive badly and it results in a few deaths. Certainly there are people who get overextended, but the vast majority of loans are repaid, and they're repaid in the process of gaining a better financial record over time.
Lindsay, you have to come in here.
Okay, so let me
lost
just say,
control.
we're talking about.
No, we haven't lost control. It's absolutely fantastic. But what I would say is, why is Able doing so badly? Is it because of Ellerines, or is it because of their micro-lending model? And why is
This is
Capitec
important.
doing so
They are
well?
doing badly because all of the other big four banks have been pushing into this space and have been extending loans to customers of theirs that they've got on their books that they can see their salaries coming in. The fact that they flooded the market meant there was less quality business for the opponents to do. But the industry itself is in fine fettle, and I expect it to continue doing well.
I think we have to have a rematch.
Fettle,
Lindsay,
last
we're
word.
out of time. We're out of time.
It is not in fine fettle, that's for sure. It is an unsustainable practice. And I just want to say again, this is our developmental portfolios only, Paul. We didn't pull the funding. We got 120 billion rand of assets under management. We're not saying kill it, take away all the funding. We're being circumspect. We're saying we don't feel we can stand in front of our clients and convince them this is now a developmental asset class on balance.